Thank you for the introduction and a very good afternoon to everyone present here. Our paper talks about urban villages as integrated nodes within the city, where we look at thresholds as opportunities for this integration. So urban villages, what are these and how do we see them? They are merely the red threads in the city, which are limiting the lives of certain kinds of dwellers. Are they Abadi regions, which were once surrounded by agricultural land, which was their way of earning a living, which eventually got acquired by the government for development of planned colonies, and hence we call them urban villages? Or are they villages that lose their rural characteristics completely and become a part of the city? Maybe it's all of it. So coming to thresholds now. Cities are characterized by a series of spatial enclaves which are based on society, race, ethnicity, and income groups. Thresholds not only communicate these separations, but rather co-produce them by offering ground to arrange encounters of uprooting, shielding of managed development, and constrained availability, among others. Therefore, the research began with a set of objectives: to identify and define diverse urban thresholds around the villages, to observe and analyze the existing scenarios of these thresholds and identifying their needs and problems, to study methods and efficient urban design interventions for these thresholds, and to therefore suggest strategies for addressing them. The paper analyzes the construct of urban villages as opposed to the city growing around it. Villages in Delhi NCR like Nathupur, Chora Sadatpur, and others are the cases in consideration. It traces their evolution from inception to the present coexistence with the urban fabric around it and explains factors responsible for its unique development trajectory. Their threshold spaces are considered as opportunities of intervention, hence they're examined in further detail, and solutions based out of integrated governance, spatial integration, and environmental sustainability are considered, again, stemming out of the local community-based needs and aspirations like having schools, sports facilities, public libraries, planned open spaces for cultural and everyday activities, amongst others. These form the program brief, helping in a smooth transition of the urban villages from being enclaves to integrated nodes within the city. Therefore, having studied threshold spaces, the research began with classifying them in the following manner. The first one being open spaces, which are made up of parks, squares, waterfronts, green belts, roads, and streets, where people could use these areas to exchange information, strengthen interpersonal ties, and lead to environmental and social cohesion. As voids or extra spaces in the center of the informal settlement and the structures surrounding it, which are primarily being used for waste disposal, resulting in antisocial behavior. And then the overall morphology altogether, where the relationships between spatial structures, functional constellations, access networks, and emergent urbanity is seen at various scales. Now, taking a deeper look into these through the cases we studied, I would like to pass on the presentation to Anson.
Thank you, Suruchi ma'am. Coming up to our case studies. Our first case study is of Ladosarai, a project done by DUAC. The space was getting highly congested due to increase in population and being secluded from its precinct and from the city. Key elements from the case studies that we could gather were they strengthened the structural network of the village and tried to create a segregation between vehicular and pedestrian movement for a smooth and safe mobility network of the village with its precinct, so that they could be a through and through connection of the village. They proposed activities and commercial buildings which are highly interdependent and public in nature, such as museums, parks, markets, and hospitals. Coming to our next case study is of Park Royal, Rio de Janeiro. So the place were near to a water body and it was highly unsafe, unhygienic for people around it due to the and detachment, and also the unattended public spaces inside the villages. Key elements from these case studies were they developed a network system in such a manner that people could easily move inside the village and enjoy the water body, the edge of the water body. They tried to redesign the existing social spaces so that people could, which had a great potential, so that people could actually experience and have a good, lively experience through the village till the water body. Our third case study is of Medellin, Colombia. So in this case studies, the village was segregated and secluded from the city in such a manner that it took a lot of time from village to reach the city and vice versa, even though they were highly interdependent on each other. So they tried to create a network, they tried to develop the existing spine of the village and expand it and propose activities which would generate and increase the local economy of the village, and as well as create a smooth connection between the city and the village, and they could be easy interdependent nature throughout the city. So coming to the inferences and conclusions from our paper. So currently these threshold spaces act as a barrier or a boundary in the current city's planning system. The potential is high of these threshold spaces, which can be generated innovatively, social, sensitive, and adaptive solutions. These are currently untapped. Urban development programs should focus on these threshold links. Isolation from the city's network is one of the major reasons these urban villages don't get recognized, and they slowly get secluded from the city's development. So the potential development by by creating an intervention in the threshold. First, the development of thresholds tend to tie the urban village with its precinct. Opening of roads and incorporating public spaces would upgrade uh, would upgrade and provide interdependent environment, would create a circle so big that is highly interrelated with each other and blend the space. There's a smooth transition from one space to another space. We could find minimal conflict of the open spaces, which could be turned into highly recreational spaces and social and environment. By incorporating these interrelated blending nature activities in the threshold space, we could actually enable urban villages to interact with their surroundings and be a part of the development. Right now, currently, we can see that the development that happens is around the village, and village gets secluded, and the activities inside the village and outside the village are not interrelated. So by creating the threshold space in such a manner, we would enable the village to uh, get connected with its spacing. So taking forward a study of Chora Sadatpur village, we could observe these same features, like village being secluded with its surrounding development. And we could see, as you can see in the images, the village was actually closed from the surrounding plant development, and it was secluded and separated from the development. All the development throughout the year happened, but the village, which came initially, which was the initial part of all the development, was remained untouched. Although it had many opportunities, such as it had two major edges, the institutional edge and the commercial edge, with the internal spine, which was highly commercial in nature. And on the fourth edge, we could see a space which can be converted and to a great potential. Right now, it is the Nala, which is creating unhygienic and uh, and all the spaces inside the villages, the voids, are used as dump yards and creating an unsafe or promoting illegal activities in these spaces. So creating all this mind, our vision was developed to create an interdependent environment of the village, this precinct, for synchronized development of the area. For this, we focused on four objectives: connecting the village structurally, socially, recreationally, and a comprehensive development. All in all, comprehensive connection of the village with its precinct and then with the city. For this, we created a structural plan in which we incorporated all the uh, we focused on the nodes to create a recreational space, which gives a smooth transition from a planned space to unplanned spaces, and try to provide social activities in such a manner that not only people are focused with the threshold, but also they interact with the village in a smooth nature. As you can see in the master plan, we've proposed activities, we've created and developed the edges of the villages in such a manner that people are highly motivated to interact with the village or to move around with the village, and village does not get secluded from the surrounding development. People get recognized, and it gets revived. So coming up to the details, one stretch of the village was highly commercial in nature, to keeping it commercial but giving space for street vendors, so that there's an increase in growth in the local economy. Coming up to the second part of second edge of the village, which was institutional come commercial, so providing food courts, food joints, and amalgamating plots and making it a big plots, so that of one edge of the road, which is highly institutional, get can have interdependent or interrelated environment in throughout, so that the village gets recognized and they don't and both the edge of and both edges of the roads doesn't remain untouched. It gets linked. There's the eco mobility, so a connection between both edges of the village in a non-vehicular environment, keeping a safe environment for pedestrians as well as cyclists, and providing activities, recreational activities, and like food courts, so that there's a lively environment throughout the stretch. Providing urban mandis, so basically combining all the mandis which are right now, people are selling their vegetables and fruits on street. They get a defined space, and it allows the plant sectors around it, people from plant sectors, to come and interact with the villagers for their daily needs. Now coming up to the last part of our presentation, the stage-wise development, the phase-wise development of the whole project. In the first phase, developing the primary roads of the villages, of the urban village, capturing the three edge of the village. Focusing on the fourth edge of the village, we'll be focusing on the recreational part. So developing the urban village structurally as well as recreationally. Coming up to the third part, connecting this threshold with the internal structure of the village, and proposing in activities in such a manner, in a such interval, so that they don't feel unsafe and there are no unattended spaces inside the village, so that people feel safe and comfortable moving around the village, and there is a smooth blend between the plant space and the unplanned space, and village gets recognized. So in future development, villages are also considered as a part of development. Thank you, everyone.